Jazzcast Pros.
Our first responders risk their lives to help others. The least we can do is make sure they have the resources they need to do their jobs. Hello, and welcome back to the Doze Podcast. I'm your host, Soda Kuchkowski, here to help you optimize your sleep health in ways that work with your unique lifestyle. And this week marks a call to honor to our first responders. So I first want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you for the sacrifices you make for your communities. But I also think it's important during this time to really acknowledge how challenging this work can be. More than 80% of first responders experience traumatic events on the job. And one of the greatest issues faced behind the scenes is a struggle to prioritize sleep. So today, I want to address this head on and help give you some insights on how to build a solid sleep foundation despite irregular schedules that come with the demands of shift work and overtime. You know, whatever shift work looks like for you, whether you're working night shifts, rotating schedules, or facing that mandatory overtime, I know that sleep can often feel elusive. But don't worry, I'm going to guide you today through some actionable strategies like anchoring your sleep to minimize the toll of those extra hours and to help you get the rest that you need. First responders, whether they're firefighters, paramedics, police officers, or emergency medical personnel, deal with high-stress, fast-paced environments that demand rapid physical and cognitive responses and reactions. But that constant demand takes a toll on both your short and long-term health, especially when your sleep suffers. When you're sleep deprived, your body and mind operates under stress. And as a first responder, you're already navigating high-stress environments, so this compounds physical fatigue, it impairs recovery. Sleep loss often affects cognition, slowing your reaction time, impairing decision-making, and reducing your focus, which in your line of work can have some serious consequences. You know, another side effect of sleep deprivation is impaired impulse control and emotional regulation. When you're tired, you're more likely to react on impulse rather than with reason or logic. And as a first responder, this can lead to responses, especially in time of crisis, that don't serve you or those that you're trying to help. Emotionally, sleep is a cornerstone for regulation, and without it, managing the intense emotions that come with your job becomes even harder. So it's no wonder that we see higher rates of anxiety, depression, and PTSD in this community. And as a first responder, you're also at a much higher risk of developing sleep disorders like insomnia, sleep apnea, or shift work disorder. You know, the irregular hours, exposure to trauma, and physical exertion all contribute to disturbed sleep cycles. But that's what's concerning is that many of these sleep disorders go undiagnosed and untreated, leading to chronic health issues over time. Statistically speaking, shift workers on average have a 35 to 55% higher likelihood of sleep disorders, with correctional officers clocking in at the highest percentage of 55. So what can be done? How can you as a first responder build a foundation for better sleep? Well, first it starts with that low-hanging fruit. Creating a dedicated sleep space is critical, a space that promotes restful, uninterrupted sleep. And yes, while this applies to everyone, it's especially true for first responders. Let's face it, your work environment is chaotic, so your sleep environment should be the opposite. It should be calm, quiet, and optimized for recovery. You know, too often I find many who work in these roles tend to crash on the couch, but I can't stress enough how important it is to have a separate sleep space that will set you up for sleep success, especially when you're fighting against short sleep windows. And if you sleep during the day, competing with everyday disturbances like school buses and outdoor noises. A tip you probably haven't heard of is what's called anchoring your sleep. Now, you've probably heard of setting a consistent bedtime and wake time. And for shift workers, this may be out of reach, but here's what you can do. Establishing a core sleep anchor. And this is a specific window, let's just say a 4 to 6 hour window that you prioritize for sleep, even when things get hectic. For example, if you have an anchor window from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., aim to sleep within that time frame on as many days as possible. This small anchor, even if not for a full 8 hours, helps your body to stay somewhat in sync, making it easier to catch up when you can. And this can be your longer period of sleep or just taking a nap on the days you are off to keep up with that consistency. Anchoring your sleep is even more effective with good sleep hygiene. Optimize your environment with blackout curtains, earplugs, or sound machine and comfortable bedding. You know, the goal is that the space invites relaxation and promotes deep, uninterrupted sleep, even if you're catching Z's at odd hours. Another critical factor for sleep quality is light regulation or light exposure. So depending on when you're working, there are different color of blue blocking lenses that you can wear. And for those who work overnight and actually sleep during the day, my recommendation is red lens, and I'll drop a link for those below. And then those that are looking to, that are maybe working that second shift or work the traditional during the day and maybe sometimes are on overtime, I recommend the amber lens, but I'll drop all the links for those below. And this is to prevent screens from suppressing melatonin production when you need it so that you can get to sleep. You want to limit screens leading into your bedtime. And you also want to create a pre-sleep routine to help signal to your body that it's time to wind down, no matter the time of day. And trying things like meditation, reading, or an app like Sleep Space that I've recommended before. Another great asset to shift workers is the power of naps. And when you're working overtime or you have to split your sleep across different times, naps can make a world of a difference. A short 20 to 30 minute nap during a break can boost your alertness and help you push through. And if you're having coffee, time it carefully. Use it earlier in your shift, but stop several hours before your anchor window so it doesn't interfere with your rest when you get home. Although there is a little tip for taking those shorter naps, those 10 to 20 minute naps, where you actually drink coffee and then you take a quick nap, right? Because that actually boosts the benefits and that helps you with alertness and productivity, right? But how you use napping will all depend on your specific circumstances and your schedules. This can really help in the circumstances of mandated overtime. It isn't always predictable, but you can still plan ahead when you know it's coming. So this means getting extra sleep the days leading up to it, what we call sleep banking. Studies show that getting a little more sleep in the days before a demanding shift can help mitigate the effects of sleep deprivation. So you can also plan for a longer sleep after a shift is over to help your body recover. But it's all about that planning and timing. Speaking of recovery, making sure you're giving yourself time to rest after those intense overtime days. Aiming for the recommendation, that 7 to 9 hours when you can help to reduce your sleep debt. And for your days off, stay as close to your anchor sleep window as possible. And this doesn't mean you can't enjoy some flexibility, but your body will thank you if you keep it somewhat consistent. And for all you tech-savvy sleepers, there are plenty of tools and apps to make anchoring your sleep even easier. Sleep tracking apps like Sleep Space can give you personalized insights and help you monitor your sleep patterns. It can also offer incredible sleep optimization features from guided wind downs to those which can help tailor rest periods to maximize recovery. And something that I can't stress enough when it comes to my shift workers, tools are so important for sleep success. Things like earplugs, an eye mask, a sound machine can make all the difference in improving your sleep quality, especially on those unusual schedules, right? Because you want to make sure that you're optimizing the sleep that you do get. Speaking of schedules, things like nutrition and hydration, we really don't place enough emphasis on this. But when it comes to things like nutrition, right, you want to make sure that you're eating smaller meals throughout your shift. And you want to make sure that you're avoiding heavy meals right before bed. Instead, opting for light protein-rich snacks like yogurt or nuts, which can promote sleep onset. And you want to make sure that you stay hydrated, right? But of course, you want to limit your intake an hour or so before bed so that you can avoid getting up for those bathroom trips. And I know when it comes to things like alcohol and caffeine, you want to pay attention to them, right? You want to cut out caffeine before leading into bedtime. There are some things that you can do, things like incorporating broccoli or broccoli extract. And there is an episode that I did on that I'll drop below as well. But one thing I find is a lot of times people might use alcohol as a sleep aid, but it actually disrupts your sleep quality, especially your REM, your rapid eye movement sleep, which is responsible for memory consolidation, both short and long term. So instead, you want to consider something like a relaxing herbal tea or even a magnesium supplement to help with that natural wind down. And last, if shift work and overtime are causing you to have serious sleep issues, I don't want you to hesitate to seek professional support. Many shift workers develop sleep disorders like sleep apnea, insomnia, and shift work disorder, as I'd mentioned. And for those of you who suspect you might be dealing with a sleep disorder, there's no need to suffer in silence. There are devices and tools that are available to you that are a lot more convenient. I know traditionally you think about, no one wants to go for a sleep study because they have to, stay away from home and in a foreign space and get hooked up to all these different wires. But, there are now home testing options. For instance, we at Start With Sleep and at the Doze have a home sleep testing package, which was catered specifically for the first responders and protective services organizations that we work with. They can assess for potential issues like sleep apnea from the comfort of your own home without having to spend a night at the lab. And knowing what's happening with your sleep is the first step towards improving it. With our home sleep testing packages, you can screen for these conditions and find solutions without needing a night away from home. And early diagnosis and treatment can make a huge difference. And lastly, advocating for sleep-friendly practices at work. Educating your employer about the importance of sleep can open up the possibilities for some break time, some nap-friendly spaces, or less consecutive overtime shifts. It can be hard to ask, but taking these steps not only improves your sleep, but can also improve your overall safety and job performance. So to all of our first responders today and every day, we thank you. Your work is invaluable and your well-being matters. To take care of your short and long-term health, you have to prioritize your sleep. And it's time that we normalize taking sleep seriously, not just for your personal well-being, but for your ability to continue to serve others. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Doze Podcast. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with other shift workers who could benefit from a little sleep optimization. Let's start a conversation about how we can better support those that give so much of themselves, beginning with their sleep. Until next time, stay well, sleep well, and be sure to tune in next week.